But today there's another development. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, has criticized African leaders' response to the war in Ukraine during the press conference in Yaoundé in Cameroon. Mr. Macron hit out at the continent for struggling to admit the situation is a war and not just a conflict. In March, 17 African countries abstained in a UN vote to condemn the invasion. Emmanuel Macron's comment was in response to a question about Europe's supply of ammunition to Ukraine as against what it gives in support of peacekeeping in African countries, especially within the sub-region. Let's speak to an international relations analyst, Professor Vladimir Ntredanso joins us on the line. So, Prof, why must Africa take a position on this matter? I mean, Emmanuel Macron's comment is fair, isn't it? Given the fact that France in particular has done so much to end wars in this part of the continent and improve security within the sub-region.
But I do not think his comments can be classified as fair, in the sense that any time the French would want to comment on Africa, they would want to comment on issues that inure to their benefit. He was talking about Mali and other things like that. Was the French government not the first to throw the first salvo when it suited the West to just out Gaddafi? And what did that bring to us? The so-called Arab Spring. And they were the first to lead NATO to oust Gaddafi. And they think they have done good to Africa. Is it not the same French that takes away not less than 60 billion every year from the French-speaking countries in Africa? 60 billion. You know, the colonial tax that they call it. So in which way is he saying they are doing something very beneficial to Africa? The same French will not allow any of the French-speaking countries to import from, say, Russia or China or that kind of thing. I mean, leading them in alleys that lead to France and France alone. Look, Africa does not have to be a pawn in the security calculus of the West in any way. We need to choose our friends, as Mandela has said. They don't choose our friends for us. And if there is a war somewhere, they have to show leadership. There is no war in this world, beginning from 1648, that conferences don't end the war. Wilson showed leadership, President Wilson, by calling on the whole world to stop the First World War. And they did that. He came with some 14 points, which we all have to relate to, and the League of Nations was formed. All wars, even recent ones like Yugoslavia and that sort of thing, ended up with some conferences to end the war.
Well, but to be fair, Mr. Macron in that press conference did say that before embarking on this African tour, he actually had been to Russia, all in a bid to get the war to cease.
Yes, he did. But just that gesture doesn't end the war. The war hasn't ended. He went to the place last month. And that doesn't mean if you go to Russia, talk to Putin, and later on you send arms, cache of arms and ammunition to Ukraine, what are you doing? You are exacerbating the situation. You are trying to say that let the war go on. And many French newspapers are always urging Zelensky on that he would win the war. That's no leadership. Global leaders are failing the whole world.
But what do you make of African leaders' response to the war? Emmanuel Macron says we have been hypocritical. What do you make of that? Do you agree with him?
What does he mean by hypocrisy? What does he mean by hypocrisy? Most African leaders have acted to the war on the multilateralist front. Most African countries have multilateralism as one of the pillars of their foreign policy, like Ghana. Ghana was one of the countries to react very firmly at first, using the multilateralist principle of non-aggression, which has been established by the UN Charter. So Ghana referred to the Charter and said, we do not support any aggression. And I think even the Russians were not happy that we did that by saying the war was wrong. And Ghana stated it clearly, and I think other African countries have done so. What else can we do?
When it came to sanctioning Russia, once we agreed that the invasion was wrong, when it came to agreeing to sanction Russia, as many as 17 African countries stayed off.
It's positive. I support that. Sanction to which inure to whose benefit? We're talking about the global value chain which is disrupted because of this war. We are losing, and you want us to be part of the sanction. It doesn't make sense. The sanction was to bleed Russia to the benefit of the West, and it's part of their security calculus. And they want us to be part of something that will hurt us in the long run. Already, once we are not part of it, even the sanctions affect us. Because if Ghana wants to buy anything from Russia, and like say gas, we can't, because Gazprom and others have been a part of the US sanctions. And it's not fair. Did they consult us about the sanctions? Did they take our plight into consideration? Now we can't buy things from Russia, and it's part of their sanctions. So why do they want us to sanction? I mean, we're down already, and we go and sanction the very person somehow who feeds us. We're talking about wheat and that kind of thing. In times like this, the desperation of Russia would mean that they'll be prepared to sell things to the outside world cheaper. They are doing that to China already and to other allied countries. Fine. Now, we can't have that benefit because of sanctions. And Europe or Macron wants us to be part of that unnecessary sanction. Now they see that the sanction is even biting them themselves. Russia has made a fortune out of even these sanctions. 870 billion has accrued to Russia because of the sanctions.
So you actually think that the posture of African leaders is just the way to go? We should just...
That's the way to go. Let's go with the UN. Whatever the UN does, let's go with the UN. Let's be part of the UN General Assembly and vote there to express our anger against Russia and to express how we should end the war, rather than facilitate the West to exacerbate the war situation.
Thank you very much.
Eventually hurt us.
Thank you very much. That's Professor Vladimir Ntwi-Danso, an international relations analyst. Still to come here.